Good morning and welcome to Valley Views. I'm your host, Glenn Eidson. I'm certainly glad to have you this morning. And as always, you can see our program on BTC Fiber's YouTube page as well as BTC Fiber's Channel 18. And today we have with us Earl Shockley from Inpowerd right here in Dunlap. And Earl, it's good to have you today. We appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, Earl, I know a lot of people have asked me in the past, what is Inpowerd? And I said, well, I'm not exactly sure. I said, I've been to their website, but it's hard for me to really explain all that. So why don't you explain that to us and give us some information about your company?
Sure. Well, Inpowerd is a veteran-owned international strategic consulting firm. We specialize in NERC, reliability compliance. We specialize in risk management, power system operations, physical and cyber security. So that is our main divisions of expertise, if you will. A lot of what we do is mock audits, preparation, building of programs for regulatory compliance for the energy sector. We also build cyber and physical security programs. We do technical writing. We do executive training. We have a whole branch of certified folks that can do all of those services.
Oh, so you're staying pretty busy then.
We are. We stay pretty busy, yes.
And I know your clientele is not just here in Dunlap, it's all over, isn't it?
Yes, we're international. We have clients all over the world, as well as locally. We have a number of clients in the United States and North America as well.
So that keeps you traveling from time to time, doesn't it?
It does. It does. If not me, one of my folks, yes.
So how many folks do you have working with you?
So we have, right now we have, with employees and contractors, 12 people that take care of Inpowerd.
So they stay busy then too?
They stay busy, yes. We have folks running projects at any given time of the day. Yeah.
Well, why is it important for the energy sector to have someone like you come in and help them? Why is that important?
That's a really good question because, number one, resource-wise, and just a little bit about me, I've got 40 years of experience in the energy sector. Mostly in power system operations. I spent almost 9 years as a national level regulator. In 2003 we had a Northeast blackout, if you remember that, and what came from that blackout was legislation around the energy sector on operations, planning, and cybersecurity. So now they have to operate the power grid based on rules and regulations set forth in the Code of Federal Regulations. So what we like to bring back to the clients is, number one, all of my folks have been in the industry for many years. They're all very trusted folks that I've known over the years. Many of us are former regulators like myself that were actually building the programs when it became new in 2007. So my chief security officer and myself, we were there in the beginning in 2007. We helped establish the very programs that we're helping people build in the industry. So when I started Inpowerd, I knew that, number one, I wanted to help people simplify the complexity around regulatory compliance, because as you know, whenever you have federal regulations, the rules, they grow and they expand and they become very intrusive, and at times it's very hard to distill down the most important things to do in your program to address the objectives in these regulatory standards. So we simplify the complexity for the clients. We help them, what's really important is we help them integrate it into their operational framework, help them integrate it into their risk management portfolio, so that it's not just a regulatory program that sits on the shelf and then is brought out every once in a while, that it is something that's done on a daily basis, and it just makes you very ready for when the auditors show up.
Right, and of course those federal regulations, they don't never decrease.
No, they just increase. Cyber and physical security, for example, as you know, we recently had a pipeline hacked on the East Coast. So the energy sector has had the cyber standards in place since 2007, and we've been building on those. The other sectors are coming along, the gas sector, the water sector, they're having these discussions now. They understand the importance of protecting the critical infrastructure. When we were actually building out the energy sector, the critical infrastructure, 25 years ago, we were really building it for the purpose of reliability, interconnecting and keeping the lights on. And we really didn't understand the level of intrusiveness that can happen with the further development of technology and the Internet of Things and being able to connect and people getting into that infrastructure electronically. So now we really have a focus on that. It's a high focus. It's at the highest levels of government. Even President Biden speaks about it often. So folks, there is a big piece of cyber and physical security that must be within your risk portfolio now.
Well, and I know, unlike what you do in the power, if a transformer blows or something here, they just go and replace it. But in cases of grid, where you've got thousands of customers out, that could be something that would take a while.
It absolutely can. In Texas recently here in February, they had a very bad day. A huge cold snap came through, and they had to shed a bunch of load, and they came very close, this close to losing the entire grid down in Texas. And to your point, it takes a long time to restore this. I mean, it takes time to reconnect everything, get the generators going, reconnect the transmission, and then restore the system. If you have a storm and you have trees down and you have snow and ice on the ground, there's really, it does take time. It takes the crews not only the ability to, cut the trees down and clear the passageways to get to the poles and restore the poles and the power. So, it takes a lot of effort on their part as well.
And you mentioned cybersecurity. I know that's a big thing now because
Yes.
we have so many foreign countries that don't like the United States, and
Yes.
they're willing to work on that hacking into our systems.
Oh, every day, every day. I recently took a plane flight and sat with a major executive on one of the larger East Coast companies, and we were talking. We used to work at TVA together, and we've known each other for a while. And he was telling me that the control systems, and that's what they're interested in getting into, like the nuclear plant, the safety systems, the control systems, where they can get control of the grid, shut things down, damage things. He said that they had over 49 to 50,000 attempts to get into the control system of this company. Now, all of these attempts were rebutted. They had the right programs in place, they had the right technology, the right software platforms, the right monitoring to prevent this from happening. But what it tells us is this: it's in the root cause world, it's called shots on goal. The more times you have a shot on goal, the more opportunity you have to make a goal, right? So if you have hackers out there that mean to gain access and do harm, and they continually no matter how good of a system you have, that opportunity, the more shots on goal that you have, the more of an opportunity you have that one of those will slip by and get in the net. And so we really have to be digital, around that, but we also have to understand that we have to catch it fast if it does happen and shut it down immediately. Because, like, for example, a lot of these ransomware hackings that you hear about, the hackers will get in and they'll be there for 6, 8 months, a year, looking across the platforms, seeing what kind of personal information they can gather before they gather together and lock it down and then charge you millions to release it, right? So what's really important is if intrusions do happen, that you're monitoring and that you're capturing them immediately and shutting them down.
Right, that's very important. And going a little bit back to the compliance, I guess for a small company like Sequatchie Valley Electric, they may have just a few, maybe 1 or 2 employees that work on that. But when you get into the major companies, you've got a whole section or a whole group that work on compliance, right?
That's true. If you have like a Southern company or Tennessee Valley Authority, where I'm retired from, for example, they do have entire groups and divisions of people that monitor the compliance aspect of it. And there's a real challenge for the small cooperatives and municipalities to have the resources to do these things, right? These small companies, all of the employees, whether it's from the GM on down, they wear multiple hats, right? They have many things that they have going on. And now this regulatory burden comes upon the folks, and they have to spread it out across the company. And that's a challenge, because then the smaller companies become more focused on the auditing aspect rather than the reliability aspect, right? Where we really need them focusing on. So, and then there's just a challenge of resources in general. The reason that consulting firms like Inpowerd is so necessary in our industry is that for every gray-haired technical guy like me that retires, or for every 5 of us that retire, there's only one in the pipeline coming up through. So in cybersecurity, it's even more stringent, because not only is this couple of technical cybersecurity people coming up through the pipeline, the energy sector is fighting for them, the water departments, the medical, the banking, everybody's looking to get the cyber folks. So getting the talent and getting the resources is really important. And for compliance, particularly in the energy sector, you not only have to have a compliance savvy, but you have to have the technical background to understand how to apply these rules. So it's very difficult for everybody is fighting a war for resources.
Right.
To take care of these issues.
In the cybersecurity, as you mentioned, when they get into your system, I mean, you have names, addresses, and like in a medical, you'd have all kind of information on medical, and that, you get that kind of information, a hold of that information, you don't want that leaked out.
Absolutely, and you're talking about the corporate IT side of it. There's a lot of valuable personal information there, right? The control systems is really where they get in and can operate a generator or a substation. So we're protecting both of those, because it can have a serious impact on the brand of your company. For example, if you allow a hack like this to happen and this personal information to get out, or if you're a company that allows a major hack to happen and your safety systems are compromised and they get into your control systems. And like, for example, there was some events in Russia several years ago where they hacked in and they took over from the system operators, and the system operators actually saw their computers working, and they're going, what's going on? Somebody had hacked in, they started opening breakers, they started de-energizing power across the grid. So yeah, that can really have an impact on your reputation. Because your reputation really hinges on your weakest vulnerabilities. If your vulnerabilities are that people can get into your system, take your private information and share it, or shut down your systems, that's a true risk to the organization and to the stakeholders of your organization.
Right, and for the corporate side, when they get into the corporate information, maybe you're the leading corporation in your area, if they get into your information and find out what all you're doing, or the things you know that others don't, that could be very...
Absolutely. That could be very damaging to your company.
Right, because then others could pick in and say, oh, that's what they're doing, and pick up things like that.
Right.
So that's now you mentioned a little bit about your background, but let's go a little further into your background. I know you're a veteran. You're in the Navy, right?
Yes, United States Navy. I served aboard an aircraft carrier. That's where I got my start in the power system business. Power system operations. I was running generation and generating plants aboard an aircraft carrier, which is a small city. 4,500 people, and a number of aircrafts aboard there. I came out of the Navy and worked at San Diego Gas and Electric, Seattle City Light, and then I finished my power systems career with Tennessee Valley Authority. Spent many years in the control centers operating the grids, from distribution to the transmission to the power system generating plants. Earlier in my career, I spent time as a lineman, spent time switching in substations. During those days, we actually had manned substations. We had a team of folks. Now it's all automated, but I've worked in hydro plants, substations, spent the biggest part of my career in the control center and system operations, working shift work, making sure that the lights stay on from the transmission and reliability coordination aspects of it. That was my leg up into getting into the regulatory world, because when the 2003 blackout occurred, I had the opportunity to get involved with different things, and the folks that ended up being the Certified Electric Reliability Organization in NERC, understood who I was, and they needed technical folks that could come in and do business startup and would understand the compliance aspect to the business startup and frame that up for North America. So,
well, I know you've done a lot of writing for different journals and so forth. Plus, you've spoke to many groups. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a number of, I had a series of articles that I put out called Perspective of the Next Regulator, trying to break down, the strategy of the regulatory agency to simplify it for the electric industry. Some of my articles have been posted and printed off in magazines like Electric Power and Light. They've been across the internet. I've done a number of white papers on different subjects as well. So I haven't had as much time to do that lately as I used to, but I really like doing that. I like to analyze different things and try to simplify the regulatory work for folks that really don't have tons of time to put their head under the hood of what's going on. Right. Because it's a big machine. It starts up very high at the national level, and it works down to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is the oversight for the grid, and then NERC, which is the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. They are the certified ERO that basically does the monitoring, the auditing, and so on and so forth. And when I was there, I had the golden opportunity, because I'm a certified root cause analysis instructor, is to lead major blackout investigations. So when I was at the national level, I led, like for example, the 2008 Florida blackout, the 2011 Southwest blackout of Arizona, New Mexico, California, the first Texas cold snap event, which was 10 years to the day that we had in this February. It was February of 2011. So I had the opportunity to really, look at the success factors of organizations, as well as, what were the vulnerabilities that most people were missing, the invisible risks that folks weren't picking up, that allowed the dominoes to kind of tremble into that.
And I reckon your industry really changes from day to day. As just like computers, you get one now, and 6 months down the road it's obsolete. So the industry changes pretty much that fast, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because our industry is run by technology now, right? So the technology, it changes so fast, and the rules change. I did an analysis when I was a regulator. I did one just recently where I looked at the portfolio of rules that apply to the energy sector and found that all of these standards at any given time, over 50% of them was in flux. And what I mean by that is that they were being revised, they were being updated, they were being retired, they were being shifted from one standard to another. There was new standards coming down the pike, like for example the Texas winter event that happened this February. There's going to be a lot more winter weatherization rules around the power plants, and now these have to be integrated in. The new technology rules around physical and cyber security as well. So what that means is that the regulatory target is a moving target. It's not a static target, so you can't just pull back the bow and hit the target. You really have to have a strategy around following all of these trends and different things, following the technology and seeing where it's going, and then matching your program up, having modular programs to where you can immediately plug out something and plug in something, and continue to be sustainable in what you do across your program.
And I guess talking about the Texas cold snap in this past February, that was kind of a different event. It was just one of those that doesn't happen all the time, and it's something that it causes you to think, when it happens.
It does. It was a really bad winter event. Now, there were some precursors before, so it's not the first time that it's happened, but it's the first time it's happened to that degree, right? So like in 2011, it was a serious cold snap event, and I was part of the team that wrote the recommendations and the report about what we should do to prevent it from happening again. Unfortunately, of those 18 recommendations, not many of them were really taken to heart. We had the opportunity at the national level to implement standards to make sure they happened, but they backed away from that. So now 10 years later, folks are going, well, that report that was done 10 years ago said we should be doing, because they just released the report on the new event, and it very much mirrors the findings that my team had 10 years ago. And that was protecting plants from freezing. We had the natural gas supply pump stations that were freezing as well. There was just a number of things that have consistently happened that we could have learned from, and it's difficult to do so. And in our industry, our budgets are so tight. Right. I mean, it is really hard for executives to parse out the money appropriately and have a vision down the road, right? So we look at risk, we look at the probability and the likelihood of it occurring, and then we try to apply the money to that, right? So when you have a big event like February, it comes up and it takes us over, it makes us rethink to your opinion, but it costs a lot of money to do what the recommendations in these major federal reports say. They want you, okay, well, just go do it. Well, you have to raise the ratepayers' rates. Then that, like with local cooperatives, there's a big battle between the ratepayers and the cooperatives to keep the costs low. And same thing with Tennessee Valley Authority. They're trying to sell power and they're trying to keep it the lowest, in the valley. So it's not as easy to do. It's not just like we just go do it. We're talking billions of dollars, and we're talking older infrastructure that may need to be updated, and then the technology applied to that as well, right? So it's a different aspect as far as strategy, and it's a challenge to our industry.
Right, because putting new stuff on old parts doesn't always work.
It doesn't work, and usually when we're building something, we do it in projects, right? So we'll start with project number one. We'll have vendors that bid. Okay, we got these vendors that won this one. Project two, these vendors do this one, these vendors. And when you get through a project, maybe 5 projects of different vendors, one of the things that we haven't been good about is going back and engineering how all of these things should work together.
Yeah.
Right? How is it congruent across all these different things? And when you're building it from perspective, like I said, 25 years ago, we really didn't think there was a cyber perspective that needed to be built into it. So now we have to go back and we have to bolt on different things, and we have to think about spending more money and rearranging our networks and different things to protect them. So.
Right, and it's talking about the spending of the money. It's not always on building advancements, but it's just stuff you have to do to what you got.
Absolutely. The biggest part of the money is just keeping the documentation up to snuff, right? So you come in and you get audited. The first thing auditors look at is your documentation around your programs, right? And if you have regulatory rules that are fluctuating at 50% of the time, you are like the cybersecurity standards, for example, in a 4-year period has gone from version 3 to version 9. And this summer we're getting a whole new version. So there's a strain on the resources of just keeping your documentation, your approach, your gathering of evidence up to the par of the new versions of the standards coming. So when they come in, they look at your documentation. So a big part of the time is an administrative burden. And to your point about the smaller companies where people are wearing many hats and you don't have like a dedicated group of 15 or 20 compliance people, you're getting Joe, you're getting Susie, you're pulling them from different groups, you're forming tiger teams, you're updating documents. And when you pull them away to do compliance related administrivia, then you're taking them away from serving reliability to the customer. And that's always kind of been my rub. And that's why when I came out and formed Inpowerd, I said, you know what, I have to. Inpowerd stands for intelligent empowerment, by the way. That's I want to intelligently empower the industry to have a simplified version of what we need to do programmatically to achieve these. Simplify the complexity, if you will.
Well, what brought you to Dunlap? I mean, I know there's probably many places you could have been closer to bigger power organizations. What brought you here?
Well, I've actually lived here on Cagle Mountain since 2003.
Oh,
okay. So we've lived here quite a time, but I was always on the road as a national level regulator. And then when I first started my company, a lot of travel that had come up with that. I was always on the road. I seriously thought about it, opening my firm in Chattanooga. But I just came down to a couple of factors. Number one, I love Dunlap. I love Sequatchie County. I mean, we've lived here since 2003. But there's just a huge amount of support from the Chamber of Commerce, from the mayor's office, from all of the different business organizations for people that bring their business into Dunlap. Now, as you mentioned, I'm a veteran. I'm very closely aligned with the Veterans of Foreign War and the American Legion here in Dunlap. So I have just tremendous support from a veteran aspect. So it's attractive to me, the hometown, just having the smaller town feel. But you know what? There's a lot happening in Dunlap and Sequatchie Valley, as you know, right? So we're growing. We have committed people that are restoring this city. They're restoring the old buildings, and we're all pitching in to make this little town and city. We got a great mayor and a chamber of commerce that really supports the businesses.
Right.
We, when we do things for charity, for example, Hee Haw Week, right? We're
Right.
all in it together to the small businesses. So I really like that camaraderie. I like that support that I get from the fellow business people in this little town.
Well, there's a lot of small businesses like yourself around. There's more than people realize.
That's right. That's right.
They're out there and they're doing quite well right now. They really are.
Yes, absolutely.
And excuse my nose. Sorry about that. Now, for example, when someone becomes a client of yours, and after you do your initial research and talk and everything that you would normally do with that company, what's the process with if they call you back, say 6 months, a year later, and say, hey, this has come up, we need some help, what do? You go back to them?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I would say all but maybe one of my clients that I have signed a contract with since we opened the company in 2015 is still a client. Again, resources and talent and having that business mixture of strategy, technology, and compliance is really great for us, because when we finish one project, we're usually led right into another project. And there's always opportunity out there when you form really good relationships. We very seldom put in formal proposals because we've just grown by word of mouth. And most of my recommendations and my personal recommendations are CEO level recommendations from companies that we've helped. So when you have that kind of reputation and those relationships building, you get a phone call and you say, hey, so-and-so told me you did great for them. Would you like to come in and work for us? So, but yeah, so we come in with sometimes with small projects and they lead to big projects. Sometimes we come in with big projects and then it leads to a number of smaller projects. So when they find out that you are reasonable in your costing towards them, if you're reasonable and you're trustworthy and you say and you follow through with what you say you're going to do, it leads to more business for you.
Well, I know you're on social media, so how can people get in touch with you if they need to get in touch with you? Sure.
Well, our main webpage is Inpowerd, www.inpowerd.com. We do have a presence on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Please connect with us. We post a lot of good information, particularly around regulatory compliance and what's going on in the energy sector, and what we need to see that's rolling down the hill for us, right? So we have a lot of folks connected up to us and that we communicate with social media.
And you're also, for those that don't know, you're located right across from City Hall.
Absolutely, yeah. We're in the old Barker's Insurance Building, right across from City Hall. Yep.
All right, was there anything else you'd like to add to what we've covered?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity of talking. I really appreciate small media opportunities just to share what we do. And because we actually have people kind of walk into the office and they say, hey, I don't mean to bother you, but what is Inpowerd? What do you guys do? So it's really nice to kind of talk about what we do and and how we benefit the energy sector. And it's just really great to be part of the small town of Dunlap and do these things. So.
Well, great, Earl. It's been good to have you.
It's been a pleasure.
Remember, folks, you can see this interview on BTC Fiber's YouTube page as well as BTC Fiber's Channel 18. And until next time, we'll see you then. Thank you. Hey everybody, this is Glenn Eidson from Valley Views. We appreciate you watching our shows, and we would like for you to like, share, and follow us on Facebook, as well as like and subscribe to our YouTube page.
Brought to you by Bledsoe Telephone Cooperative, your full-service telecommunications provider right here in the Sequatchie Valley.